The wedding hall was small. There were only a few flowers. The lights were dim. The food was simple. Some chairs were broken. Guests walked in with fake smiles and quick whispers. She's wearing that dress? Did they rent this place from a school? This looks more like a joke than a wedding. In the middle of all this stood Zoya, the bride. She was wearing a plain white dress. No heavy makeup, no designer jewelry, just a small golden locket on her neck. But her eyes, they were full of something different. Not fear, not sadness. It was calm strength. Samir, the groom, looked nervous. He stood by the stage, fixing his collar again and again. His mother sat with a tight face. She wasn't happy. She has no family, she said to her sister. No background, no class. My son could have married anyone better. Samir heard that, but he stayed quiet. He looked at Zoya and smiled. She smiled back. The wedding began. Some people clapped half-heartedly. The photographer didn't even try to take good pictures. But Zoya stood tall. She held Samir's hand, and for a moment, it felt like the whole world disappeared. After the ceremony, guests stood in groups. Some were taking selfies. Some were laughing loudly. One old woman whispered to her daughter, "She's pretty, but there's something strange about her. I've seen that face before." The daughter rolled her eyes. "Ami, you always say that." But the old woman kept staring. Suddenly, she gasped. "Wait! I remember. That's her. That's the girl from the news years ago." Inside the bride's room, Zoya sat quietly. She took off her sandals and rubbed her tired feet. Samir walked in with 2 cups of tea. "For the bride with cold hands," he said, smiling. Zoya laughed. "And for the groom with sweaty hands?" They both laughed softly. Samir sat beside her. "You did great today," he said. She looked at him, eyes serious now. "You know people laughed, right?" Samir shrugged. "Let them. They don't know your story, but one day they'll wish they did." Suddenly the door knocked. A lady walked in. She was the same old woman from earlier. Her eyes were wide. Her hands shook. Zoya stood up, confused. "Yes?" The woman walked closer. "You're Zoya from the news, right? The girl from the tech orphanage?" Zoya's heart skipped a beat. Samir looked shocked. "What is she talking about?" Zoya quickly walked forward and gently held the woman's hands. "Auntie, please, don't say anything more." But it was too late. The woman looked at Samir and said, "Your wife is a genius. Years ago, she was in all the newspapers. She created something big, but then she vanished." Samir turned to Zoya. "Is this true?" Zoya looked down. "I was waiting to tell you. But I was afraid." He sat down slowly. "You mean you were famous?" Zoya nodded. "I created something when I was just 14. A safety device for women. I presented it in front of big people. They clapped. They promised to support me. But then," Zoya's voice shook, "then everything was stolen." Flashback begins. Zoya, at age 14, in a school uniform, holding a small circuit board in her hand. An engineer claps for her. "This is brilliant!" He takes her idea, promises support. Weeks later, Zoya sees the same idea on TV, but her name is not mentioned. They erased her. When she complained, no one listened. She was an orphan, poor, powerless. Flashback ends. Samir sat quietly. "I'm so sorry," he said. Zoya took a deep breath. "That's why I left everything. I stopped dreaming. I started hiding. But now, I have you, and I'm not afraid anymore." Outside the room, the guests were still talking. "Did you hear? She was in the news. She made something big. Then why is she still poor?" But Zoya didn't care anymore. She opened her small purse. Inside was a tiny silver USB. She looked at it, then looked at Samir. This has my original work, my designs, my truth. Samir smiled. Then maybe it's time to finish the story you started. Later that night, the couple sat on the bed. Samir held the USB carefully. Do you want to plug it in? Zoya hesitated. What if it's all old now? What if no one cares? Samir looked her in the eyes. What if someone does? She finally nodded. Samir opened his laptop and plugged it in. Files opened, designs, sketches, videos of Zoya, younger, explaining her idea. Samir stared in silence. This is gold. Zoya smiled for the first time that night. You really think so? He held her hand. I know so. Outside their window, the night was dark, but a new light had started glowing, not outside, but inside them. A dream was coming back to life. Meanwhile, the woman who recognized Zoya made a phone call. Hello? Kamran bhai? Remember that tech girl from years ago? I just saw her. She's back. Kamran paused. What? Are you sure? The woman said. Yes, and I think she's about to do something big. Kamran ended the call and stared at his wall, full of company posters. His hands shook because he had stolen Zoya's dream years ago. And now, she had returned. The wedding was over. The guests had gone. But Zoya's heart was not calm. She sat in her new bedroom, holding the silver USB in her hands. Memories kept coming back. Memories she had tried to forget. Samir was fast asleep. But Zoya couldn't close her eyes. The old woman's words echoed in her head. You're the girl from the news, the genius who disappeared. Zoya whispered to herself. I thought I left that life behind, but the past always finds a way back. She stood up and walked to the window. The night was dark, the street was quiet, but her thoughts were loud. She opened her purse and pulled out a photo. A group photo from Tech Future Orphan Academy, a photo of her smiling, standing with other kids and teachers. On the back, it said, Zoya, age 13, project leader. A tear rolled down her cheek. I used to believe the world was good, she whispered, until they took everything from me. Flashback. 8 years ago, Zoya was just a girl in a gray school dress. She lived in a small orphanage in Karachi, but this was not an ordinary place. It was a tech academy for orphan girls, started by a kind engineer named Sir Bilal. He believed every child, rich or poor, could build something great. Zoya was his brightest student. She worked day and night on her invention, a small wearable device that could send a live GPS location and alert with one tap. One day, this will protect women everywhere, she had said proudly. Sir Bilal had tears in his eyes. You're going to change lives, Zoya. One day, a rich businessman named Kamran Shah came to visit the school. He smiled a lot. He praised Zoya. He promised big things. Let's take this invention to the world, he said. We'll share the credit. You'll be rich, famous. Zoya was so happy. She believed him. She gave him all her designs. Sir Bilal warned her. Be careful, Beta. This world isn't always kind. But Zoya was young, hopeful. 2 months later, the truth hit hard. Kamran launched the same device, same design, same idea. But Zoya's name was gone. She was not mentioned, not thanked. Not seen. When Sir Bilal tried to raise his voice, his academy was mysteriously shut down. The kids were separated. The staff was silenced. And Zoya vanished. Back to present, Zoya closed the photo album and wiped her tears. She took a deep breath. I stayed silent for too long. But now, it's time to speak. The next morning, Samir was shocked to see Zoya up early, working on her laptop. What are you doing? Zoya looked at him with fire in her eyes. I'm building my project again, from scratch. But you just got married. Don't you want to rest? She shook her head. I've rested enough. It's time to wake up the world. She opened the USB again. Sketch by sketch, code by code, she started rebuilding her old design, but better, smarter, stronger. Samir sat beside her, slowly understanding just how talented his wife really was. He looked at the screen. This could become huge, Zoya replied calmly. It will become huge. But this time, my name will be on it. Meanwhile, in a high-rise office, Kamran Shah sat sipping coffee. He was now the CEO of SafeTrack, a billion-dollar tech company, the same company built from Zoya's stolen idea. His assistant walked in. "Sir," someone called last night. They said, "The original girl is back." Kamran froze. He dropped his coffee. "What did you say?" The assistant repeated. "They said her name is Zoya. She got married recently. She's rebuilding." Kamran's face turned pale. "Find her. Now. Back." In Zoya's home, she received a message. Anonymous email. "We remember what they did to you. Let us help you fight back. Reply if you're ready." Zoya stared at the message. Samir leaned over. "Who sent this?" "I don't know," she whispered. "But I think I'm not alone." Later that day, Zoya visited her old area, the place where the orphanage once stood. Now it was just a broken building. She walked slowly through the dust. Old memories came flooding in. A small voice from behind made her stop. "Zoya," she turned around. It was Ikra, her old friend from the academy. They ran and hugged. "I thought I'd never see you again," Ikra cried. "Me too," Zoya said softly. Ikra showed her a file. "I kept copies of everything, emails, blueprints. Your name is all over it. They can't hide the truth forever." Zoya held the file with shaking hands. For the first time in years, she felt hope. At night, Zoya sat with Samir. She placed the file, the USB, and her laptop on the table. "This is everything I have. My past, my proof, my pain." Samir held her hand. "You don't have to do this alone." Zoya looked at him, eyes shining. "I'm not doing it for revenge. I'm doing it for every girl who was told she's not enough." In Kamran Shah's office, a new alert popped up. "New app launch. Z-Safe. Founder. Unknown." He stared at the logo. His hands shook. He whispered, "She's back. And this time, she's coming for everything." Samir sat on the edge of the bed watching Zoya work. Her fingers moved fast on the keyboard. Lines of code filled the screen. He smiled, proud, but deep inside, something was hurting. He loved Zoya. He believed in her. But a part of him was scared, not because of her success, but because of his own truth. Samir had never told Zoya everything about his family. They didn't want him to marry her. They didn't trust her past, and now, as she started rising again, he knew. His family might try to stop her, and maybe stop them. Later that evening, Samir's phone rang. It was his elder brother, Faizan. Samir stepped out of the room to take the call. "Hello?" Faizan's voice was sharp. "I saw the news. The app. That girl, Zoya. Is she behind it?" Samir stayed silent. Faizan continued, "You made a big mistake, Samir. Do you even know who she is?" "Yes," Samir said quietly. "I know her better than anyone." "You don't," Faizan snapped. "You know what she's doing? She's attacking a billion-dollar company. This could bring trouble to us." Samir clenched his jaw. "She's not attacking. She's taking back what's hers," Faizan laughed coldly. "You think people will let her win? She's alone, Samir. She has no name, no support." "She has me," Samir said firmly. Faizan's voice turned low. "Then you better stay ready. Because when Kamran Shah fights back, you'll both suffer." Samir ended the call and stood still. His heart was heavy. His family had money, power, connections. But he had chosen love over comfort. He had chosen Zoya. And now, he had to stay strong for her. Meanwhile, Zoya was testing her app, Z-Safe. It was simple. One click. And it shared your live location with trusted contacts. Another feature recorded surroundings in real time. It was fast, clean, and most importantly, it worked. She smiled, satisfied. Samir walked in. "You okay?" she asked, noticing his tired eyes. He nodded. "Just tired." She walked over and hugged him. "You've always supported me. I don't know how to thank you." Samir held her tightly. "You don't have to. Just promise me one thing." "What?" "No matter what happens, don't give up." Zoya looked up. "Never." But outside their home, a black car waited. Inside, a man in sunglasses was speaking on the phone. "Yes, sir. They're working. From home." No media yet. But the app is spreading fast. The voice on the other end replied, "Slow them down. Do whatever it takes. I don't want her name in the market." The man nodded. He looked at a photo on his dashboard. A picture of Zoya. Then he whispered, "Your time is over, little genius." The next day, Zoya and Samir went to meet a lawyer. She wanted to file a legal notice against SafeTrack, Kamran Shah's company. They entered the office of Advocate Mahira, a kind, bold woman in her late 30s. Zoya placed all her files on the table: sketches, old emails, USB content, photos from her academy. Mahira took her time, reading everything carefully. After 20 minutes, she leaned back and smiled. "This is strong, Zoya, very strong. So, we can file the case?" Mahira nodded. "But it won't be easy. Kamran has powerful lawyers. He'll try to break you." Zoya looked at Samir, then back at Mahira. "I'm not afraid anymore." As they walked out of the office, a man passed by and bumped into Samir. Samir fell back slightly. "Hey, watch it," he said. But the man had already walked away. Zoya looked at Samir's jacket. There was now a small red sticker on it. She pulled it off, confused. It had just one line written on it. "Stop now, or lose everything." Samir's face turned serious. "They're watching us." Zoya's hands shook slightly, but then she clenched her fist. "Let them watch. I have nothing to hide." That night, Samir couldn't sleep. He walked to the kitchen and poured a glass of water. He opened his phone and scrolled through old photos. One photo stopped him, a photo from 2 years ago. He was standing with another girl, smiling, laughing. She was from a rich family. Her name was Anaya. His family had wanted him to marry her. She was educated, wealthy, polished. But her heart was never kind. Samir had ended things because she once insulted a poor girl in public. That girl had cried. Samir remembered how ashamed he felt, and that night he promised himself, "I will never choose class over kindness again." The next morning, he told Zoya everything, about Anaya, about Faizan, about his family's warning. Zoya sat silently for a moment, then she smiled softly. "You chose me even when you had better options." Samir shook his head. "I didn't choose better. I chose right, but danger was growing." That day, Zoya received a fake job offer in her email. Big company, big salary. But when she clicked the link, her laptop screen went black. A message appeared. "This is your last chance. Drop the app. Delete everything." Samir quickly shut the laptop. He called a tech friend to recover the files. Zoya sat on the sofa, holding her breath. Someone was trying to break her from the inside. Later, her friend recovered most of the files, but some data was lost. Zoya looked at Samir. "They want me to give up." Samir sat beside her. "But they don't know what you've survived." Zoya nodded. "I didn't come this far to stop now." Across the city, Kamran Shah got the report. "The laptop attack failed," his assistant said. Kamran threw a glass against the wall. "She's getting stronger," he whispered. "She's not a child anymore." He sat back and stared at the ceiling. Then he picked up his phone. "Call my legal team. We're going to war." Rain poured outside. Zoya sat near the window, holding the silver USB tightly in her hand. It was cold, like the night she first received it. She remembered Sir Bilal's voice clearly. "This USB holds your truth. Keep it safe." She had hidden it for years, but now it was time to use it. Samir entered the room with 2 cups of tea. "You okay?" he asked gently. Zoya looked at him, her eyes tired but determined. "I think this USB can finally prove everything." Samir sat beside her. "Then let's check what's inside." Zoya plugged the USB into her laptop. A folder appeared. Project Hope. Zoya, she clicked. Inside were dozens of files. Blueprints, videos, email drafts, test results, and even a video diary. Samir leaned forward. "Is that you?" Zoya opened. The first video clip, 8 years ago. A young Zoya stood in her orphanage's lab. She held a small device in her hand, the first version of her GPS safety watch. This is for women who feel unsafe. With one press, they can send their location to family or police. She smiled brightly. Sir Bilal's voice came from behind the camera. "She built this herself. No help. Just hard work." Zoya's hands shook as the video ended. Samir looked at her. "Zoya, this is gold." She nodded slowly. "If I share this with the world, they'll know I created the original idea." Samir agreed. "But we need to do it smartly. Kamran won't stay quiet." Zoya clicked open an old email draft from the USB. It was a warning Sir Bilal had typed but never sent. It said, "Kamran Shah is trying to register the patent under his name." Zoya built the prototype. "But he's cutting her out." Samir read it twice. "This is legal proof. We can fight." But just as Zoya was saving the files, her laptop froze. The screen went black. A new message appeared in red. "You were warned." Zoya gasped. Samir pulled the plug, but the damage was done. All files disappeared from the screen. "Everything's gone!" Zoya cried. Samir stood up. "We'll fix it. Don't panic." Zoya picked up the USB. It was hot. Too hot. It had been remotely hacked. "They destroyed it," she whispered. Samir clenched his fists. "They're watching every move. We need better security." Zoya called Ikra, her old friend from the academy. "I need you," Zoya said. 2 hours later, Ikra arrived with her laptop. She was now working in cybersecurity. Together, they opened Zoya's damaged USB on Ikra's system. Ikra typed fast. After 30 minutes, she smiled. "I recovered 40% of the files. Most important ones are safe." Zoya hugged her with relief. "You just saved my dream." Ikra smiled. "And now it's time to share it with the world." Samir had an idea. "What if we post it all online? A full timeline. Photos, videos, diary entries. Let people see the truth." Zoya paused. "Once it's out, there's no going back." Ikra nodded. "But it'll also protect you. If something happens to you, the world will know." Zoya agreed. "Let's do it." That night, they launched a website, www.zoyatruth.com. Within hours, the story started spreading. People on social media began sharing the videos. Zoya invented, it started trending. Women from around the country began supporting her. In his glass office, Kamran Shah stared at his laptop. His face turned pale. "She really did it," he whispered. "She told the world." His assistant rushed in. "Sir, the internet is flooding with her name. Our company page is getting hate." Kamran slammed his hand on the table. "Get my lawyers, now." Meanwhile, Zoya and Samir were invited to a news interview. The host said, "People are calling you the hidden genius. How does that feel?" Zoya smiled politely. "It's not about fame. I just wanted justice. For me, and for every girl who's been told to stay quiet." Samir held her hand on screen. "I've never been prouder." But after the interview, as they walked out to the parking lot, a black SUV pulled up fast. Two men in suits stepped out. "Zoya Khan?" one asked. "Yes? You're under investigation for spreading false information and defamation." Zoya's heart sank. "What?" The man showed her a paper. "A case has been filed by SafeTrack CEO Kamran Shah. You must appear in court." Samir stepped in front. "She has proof," the man replied coldly. "Then show it in court." At home, Zoya sat silently. She looked at her phone. So many texts of support, but also some threats. Samir knelt beside her. "Hey, this is a fight, and fighters don't stop halfway." Zoya looked up with tears in her eyes. "I don't want to lose you." Samir smiled. "You're not losing me. You're finding yourself. And I'm here, every step." At that moment, Zoya's phone buzzed. The courtroom was full. Reporters, lawyers, and strangers. All were waiting. Some whispered, some stared, but all eyes turned when Zoya Khan walked in. She wore a simple white dress, no makeup, no jewelry, just confidence in her eyes, and pain in her past. Beside her was Samir. He held her hand tightly. He knew this was not just a case. It was a war for truth. Across the room sat Kamran Shah, in a black suit, looking calm, but with fire in his eyes. He had a team of top lawyers. Zoya had just one. Advocate Mahira. But Mahira believed in Zoya more than anyone else in that room. She whispered, "No matter how loud they are, the truth always wins." Zoya nodded. "I'm ready." The judge entered. The courtroom stood up. Then the trial began. Kamran's lawyer started speaking first. "Your Honor, this is a case of defamation. My client, Mr. Kamran Shah, is a respected businessman. Miss Zoya Khan is spreading lies to damage his reputation." He pointed to Zoya. "She has no proof, just emotions." Zoya kept her eyes down. She had learned something important. Stay calm. Let the truth speak louder than words. Then it was Mahira's turn. She walked to the center. "Your Honor, my client is not here for fame. She is here for justice." She showed the video clip from the USB, the one of young Zoya building her invention. The courtroom watched silently. Then Mahira added, "This is her idea, her design, her dream, and someone powerful tried to steal it." She paused. "But we're not afraid anymore." Kamran's lawyer stood up again. "This video could be fake. Anyone can act." Mahira smiled calmly. "Then let's talk about real emails." She opened Zoya's recovered files, emails from Kamran's office, sketches Zoya had submitted, timestamps, names, details. The courtroom began to murmur. The judge raised his hand. "Silence, please." Mahira then pulled out the final proof, the mysterious video clip, the one Zoya received from the unknown number. She played it. Everyone watched as Kamran Shah was seen saying, "She's just a child. No one will believe her." A long silence filled the room. Kamran's face changed. For the first time, he looked scared. The judge looked at Kamran. "Do you wish to explain this video?" Kamran stood slowly. "That's not me." Mahira spoke again. "We traced the video source. It came from a retired staff member of Sir Bilal's academy. He was scared, but today, he spoke the truth." She handed over the full signed testimony. The judge read it carefully. Samir looked at Zoya and whispered, "This is it. You've done it." Zoya nodded. But inside she was still shaking, not from fear, but from the weight of years she had carried, all the mocking, all the pain, all the people who laughed at her. Today they were watching her win. The judge finally spoke. "This court will review all the documents, videos, and testimony." He paused. "But from what I see today, Miss Zoya Khan has presented strong evidence that she is the original creator of the project in question." Kamran's lawyer stood up. "We request more time to respond." The judge nodded. "Court is adjourned for 7 days. Final decision will be made then." He looked at Zoya. You may leave. As Zoya stepped outside the courtroom, cameras flashed. Reporters rushed toward her. Miss Zoya, how do you feel? Do you think you'll win? Zoya smiled softly. I'm not here to win. I'm here to be heard. Samir stood proudly beside her. She fought with truth, and truth never loses. Later that night, Zoya sat on the rooftop. She looked up at the stars. Samir brought her tea and sat beside her. You were amazing in court, he said. Zoya shook her head. I was scared. Samir smiled. But still, you stood strong. That's courage. Zoya sipped her tea. She remembered Sir Bilal, her childhood struggles, and all the nights she cried alone. But tonight was different. Tonight, the world had finally listened. Meanwhile, in a dark room, Kamran Shah threw a glass against the wall. She destroyed everything, he shouted. His assistant whispered, We still have one option. Kamran looked at him. Do it, I don't care how. Just stop her before the final verdict. Back at home, Zoya's phone buzzed. A new message. We warned you. Now you'll lose more than your idea. Samir grabbed the phone. We're going to the police. Zoya nodded, but deep inside, she knew. This fight wasn't over. The city was quiet. But Zoya's heart was not. Tomorrow was the final hearing. The judge would decide everything. Her future, her name, her justice. Samir sat beside her on the balcony. The night air was cool but heavy, with fear. You haven't eaten, he said softly. I'm not hungry, Zoya replied. Her eyes were fixed on the sky. I keep thinking, what if the court doesn't believe me? Samir looked at her. Then we fight again. Until they do. Zoya gave a small smile, but deep inside she felt something strange, like a storm was coming. Later that night, Zoya received a call, unknown number. She picked it up. Zoya Khan? A deep voice said. Yes? You should have stayed quiet. Now, someone will pay. The line disconnected. Zoya froze. Samir took the phone. Who was it? She didn't answer. But her hands were shaking. She knew it was Kamran's people. They were not just fighting legally now. They were trying to scare her. Samir immediately called the police. They agreed to send security for the night. 2 officers arrived and sat outside her building. But Zoya knew. Fear doesn't always knock on the door. Sometimes it sneaks into your heart. Later, while Zoya sat in her room, a soft knock came at the window. She opened the curtain. Iqra stood there. Zoya quickly opened the door. Iqra, why are you here? I saw something, Iqra said, her voice fast. Online, a leaked document. What is it? Iqra handed her a file. It's from Kamran's legal team. They're planning to show fake documents tomorrow. Zoya opened the file. It was a false agreement, one that said she had sold her idea to Kamran years ago. Her eyes filled with tears. He's still trying to erase me. Samir looked at her. Then we show the real proof. Iqra nodded. We must stay ahead. Let's add timestamps, witnesses, and digital proof. We still have time. Zoya sat down with her laptop. For the next 6 hours, they worked. They created a final document, a full timeline, from Zoya's first sketch to the last stolen email. Every step had proof. Every page told her story. At 4 a.m., Iqra left. Zoya sat with Samir on the couch. The city outside was asleep, but she was wide awake. Samir took her hand. You know what's the best thing about you? He asked. Zoya looked at him, tired. You didn't break. Even when they tried everything. Zoya's eyes filled with tears. She rested her head on his shoulder. I'm just tired, Samir whispered. Then rest. Tomorrow, the world will see your truth. But far away, in a dark office, Kamran Shah sat with his lawyer. You're sure this fake agreement looks real? The lawyer nodded. Very real. If she shows anything else, we'll say she's making stories. Kamran smirked. She's just a girl. She won't survive tomorrow. He didn't know. Zoya was not just a girl anymore. She was a voice the world had started to hear. At sunrise, Zoya stood at her window. The light touched her face. She felt calm. No fear, no hate, just hope. Samir walked in. Ready? Zoya picked up the file, her truth, her fight, her life. Let's go win back everything they tried to steal. The court was packed again. This time, even more people had come. Some stood in the hallway. Some sat on the floor. Everyone wanted to see what would happen. Would the girl win, or would the rich man silence her? Zoya Khan entered quietly. She held a thick file in her hands, the truth she had worked all night to prepare. Beside her, Samir walked with calm eyes. He had seen her broken before. But today she looked unbreakable. Kamran Shah was already inside, smiling confidently. He whispered. To his lawyer, she looked scared, but deep inside, Kamran was the one feeling nervous. He had watched her story go viral. The world was watching now. The judge entered, everyone stood, then he looked at both sides and spoke clearly. Today, we will hear the final arguments. No more delays. He turned to Zoya. Miss Khan, you may speak. Zoya stood up. She took a deep breath. Her voice was soft, but clear. Your Honor, I was a no one, a girl from an orphanage. People laughed at my clothes. They laughed at my dreams. But I didn't stop. She held up the file. This is my journey. With every date, every drawing, every test, I created the GPS safety device. Not for money, but to help women like me. Then she looked directly at Kamran. But someone rich thought I was easy to erase. He stole my idea, my voice. She turned to the judge again. But I'm standing here, not for revenge. I'm here for justice. The judge nodded. Thank you, Miss Khan. Then Kamran's lawyer stood up. Your Honor, we have a legal agreement signed by Zoya Khan herself. She sold the idea years ago. He passed the paper to the judge. The courtroom fell silent. Even Zoya looked nervous for a second. But then, her lawyer, Mahira, stood up. Your Honor, may I respond? The judge nodded. Mahira smiled calmly and took out a USB. Let me show you something. A video played on the screen. It showed Kamran's lawyer, the same one speaking now, talking, to a man in secret. He was saying, fake the signature. Make it look old. We just need it to pass for one day. Gasps filled the courtroom. Kamran jumped to his feet. Objection! This is fake! Mahira turned to the judge. The man in the video is ready to testify. He came to us last night. He couldn't carry the guilt. She handed over the man's full written confession. The judge looked angry. He banged the table. If this is true, Mr. Kamran Shah has not only lied to the court but also tried to destroy someone's life. Kamran's face turned pale. His hands shook. The audience watched in silence. Then the judge looked at Zoya again. You may sit. Thank you for your courage. Zoya sat down. Samir squeezed her hand. It's over. She nodded. But she didn't smile yet. She waited. The judge stood up. I will take a 30-minute break before announcing my final decision. Everyone exhaled. Zoya closed her eyes. Tears dropped silently. But this time, they were not from fear. They were from relief. Outside the courtroom, Kamran shouted at his team. You fools! How did they get that video? His assistant spoke slowly. Someone from your own company leaked it. Kamran looked shocked. Who? At that same moment, in a quiet home, an old man closed his laptop. He was Sir Bilal's friend, the one who had kept silent for years. He whispered to himself, justice for Zoya and for Bilal. Minutes later, everyone returned to their seats. The judge stood. This court has seen the full story. It has seen lies, proof, and great courage. He paused. Today, we make history. He looked at Zoya. The court rules in favor of Miss Zoya Khan. She is the rightful inventor. All rights return to her name. Zoya gasped. Samir hugged her tightly. The audience clapped. Some cried, some smiled. Zoya stood. But this time, she stood tall. She had won. Cameron was ordered to step down from his company. Fines. Apologies, public shame. His fall had begun. As Zoya walked outside the court, hundreds of cameras flashed. Reporters shouted her name. One asked, "Zoya, what will you do now?" Zoya looked around at all the young girls watching her. She smiled. "I'm going to build something bigger. Not just technology, but hope." Samir held her hand. The wind blew gently. Zoya looked up at the sky. "Sir Bilal, we did it." 6 months later, the world had changed, and so had Zoya Khan. She now stood on a big stage in New York City. Thousands of people were clapping for her. On a huge screen behind her, her face appeared with these words, "Winner, Global Innovation Award." She wore a simple dress, still the same girl inside, but her eyes were full of strength, the same eyes that once held tears now held light, the same heart that was once broken now inspired millions. As she took the microphone, the hall became quiet. Zoya looked at the crowd and spoke. "A few years ago, people laughed at me. On my wedding day, they said I didn't belong. I had no money, no big name, no fancy clothes, just a dream." She paused. "But I learned something. You don't need to be rich to be strong. You just need to believe in yourself when no one else does." The crowd stood up and clapped. Zoya smiled. But her journey had not ended. It had just begun. Back home, her invention, the GPS safety device, was now saving lives. Police stations, hospitals, and women's groups were using it all over the country. Girls in small villages now felt safer walking to school. Women in big cities now had help in their hands. Zoya didn't just build a device, she built hope. Samir sat in the front row. He watched her with pride in his eyes. He had been there, when no one else had. When she cried, when she fell, when she wanted to give up. He stood up and clapped with tears in his eyes. Later, when Zoya stepped down from the stage, he hugged her tightly. "You're not the girl people laughed at anymore," he said. Zoya smiled. "I'm still her, but now they'll remember me for something else." Back in her hometown, the hotel where people once mocked her now had a new owner, Zoya Khan. She didn't buy it for revenge. She bought it to change it. She renamed it Hope Haven. She turned it into a shelter for girls with big dreams but small chances, free classes, coding, designing, safety training. Girls walked in scared and walked out strong, just like she once did. One afternoon, a small girl approached her. "Miss Zoya, can I really become an inventor like you?" Zoya knelt down, looked into her eyes and said, "You already are. Just don't let anyone tell you you're not enough." The girl smiled, and Zoya saw herself in her, the shy eyes, the hidden spark. That moment felt like magic. As time passed, Zoya's name spread around the world. TV shows, magazines, awards, but she always stayed simple. She never forgot the night she cried alone on a rooftop, or the day people laughed at her wedding. She turned pain into power, and silence into voice. 1 year later, a special event was held at the same hotel where her journey began. All the hotel staff, the manager, the guests who once mocked her were invited. They watched as Zoya walked in with grace and love, not anger. She stood on the same stairs where they once laughed at her. She said, "To those who mocked me, thank you. You pushed me to become better." She smiled gently. "And To those who stood by me, I owe everything. Samir stood beside her, now her husband and business partner. They had built something greater than a company. They had built a life of meaning. As the sun set behind them, Zoya stood on the rooftop, the wind in her hair. She looked out at the city lights and whispered, "They laughed once. Now, they listen." And just like that, a girl who was once invisible became a legend.